Dr. Amanda Brooks gripped the polished obsidian railing of the observer's gallery, her knuckles turning white as she watched the scene unfold below. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out before her, its crystalline dome refracting starlight across the assembled delegates of 300 species. Under different circumstances, she might have marveled at the architecture, but not today. Not while they dragged her friend away in stasis cuffs. The evidence speaks for itself. First Speaker Nexus announced, his tentacular appendages rippling with what Amanda recognized as smug satisfaction. The Arcanian delegation has been found guilty of developing biological weapons in direct violation of Treaty 794. The holographic evidence floated above the chamber floor, showing what appeared to be Arcanian research facilities. Amanda's stomach churned as she recognized her own laboratory data, twisted and altered to support their lies. 3 years of collaborative research on medical nanites, meant to cure degenerative diseases, now portrayed as a weapon of mass destruction. Zilith, her Arcanian research partner, stood dignified despite the energy restraints binding his crystalline form. His normal iridescent glow had dimmed to a pale blue, the only sign of his distress. "We demand an independent investigation," he called out, his harmonics perfectly controlled. "Earth's scientists can verify." "Earth has no standing in this matter." Second Speaker Meridian cut him off, her feathered crest flaring. "Their technological development level renders them unqualified to assess Arcanian research methodologies." Amanda's fingers flew across her neural interface, sending an encrypted burst transmission to Earth's embassy. Asterisk there, using doctored versions of our joint research. Someone got into our secure servers. Asterisk, she looked down at the datapad clutched in her other hand. Running probability analyses. The numbers confirmed what her gut already knew. This had been planned for months, if not years. From her vantage point, she could see Earth's ambassador, Michael Harrison, attempting to gain the Council's attention. They were deliberately ignoring his diplomatic priority signals. The message was clear. Humanity's voice didn't matter here. The chamber's air grew thick with chemical signatures as various species expressed their agreement with the Council's judgment. Amanda's enhanced olfactory implants filtered the worst of it, but she could still taste the bitter victory pheromones being released by the Nexus's species. "The sentence is quarantine isolation," First Speaker Nexus declared. "The Arcanian home system will be sealed off for the safety of the galactic community. All off-world Arcanians must return to their territory within 1 standard cycle." Amanda's neural interface pinged. A secure message from Dr. Jessica Mitchell back on Earth. Asterisk found something in the archaeological data Zilith sent last week. This isn't about weapons. They found something in those ruins. Something big asterisk. Looking down at the chamber floor, Amanda caught Zilith's multifaceted eyes. He tilted his crystalline head in the subtle way that she'd learned meant urgent communication. His external lights flickered in an old Earth binary code they'd developed for emergencies. Truisty humans only. Ruins contain truth. The Council guards were already moving to escort the Arcanian delegation away. Amanda watched as her friend, her colleague, the being who had helped Earth cure 3 devastating plagues, was marched toward the detention levels. The other Council members began filing out, their business concluded, their consciences apparently clear. Ambassador Harrison finally caught her eye from across the chamber and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. The emergency protocols they'd developed for just such a betrayal were already in motion. Earth had known this day might come, the day when the Council's facade of benevolent leadership crumbled. As the chamber emptied, Amanda allowed herself a grim smile. The Council had just made a fatal mistake. They assumed humanity's primitive development level made them irrelevant. They ignored the fact that Earth's primitive technology had developed along completely different lines than their own. They forgot that humanity's greatest advances came from its greatest challenges. Most importantly, they didn't understand that humans would never ever abandon their friends. Amanda sent one final message to Earth Command. Asterisk Operation Eternal Debt is now active. The Council just started a war they don't even know how to fight. Colonel Jack Reynolds stood before the Joint Chiefs in the Pentagon's secure bunker, known as the Vault. The room hummed with the soft buzz of quantum scramblers. Old tech, Earth tech, invisible to Council scanners. The holographic display behind him showed the Arcanian home system, now surrounded by Council peacekeeping forces. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying 30 years of combat experience. "The Arcanians saved Earth during the colony plague. When our Mars settlement was dying, when we lost contact with Europa base, they broke Council regulations to give us advanced medical technology." He paused, letting the memory sink in. "They chose humanity over politics. Now it's our turn." General Sarah Martinez leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the tactical display. The Council's watching every official channel. They're expecting either compliance or direct confrontation. A slight smile crossed her face. "Let's give them neither." "Exactly," Reynolds gestured, and the display shifted to show Earth's supposedly mothballed pre-FTL fleet. "While they monitor our modern ships, we've been retrofitting these beauties. No quantum signatures. No antimatter engines, just good old-fashioned fusion drives and kinetic weapons." Admiral James Cooper, his dark features illuminated by the holographic glow, nodded in approval. "Operation Eternal Debt. We've been preparing for Council betrayal since the day they arrived. The Arcanians knew this might happen. They helped us plan for it." The room's temperature dropped slightly as the next images appeared. Massive refugee ships, hidden in plain sight. "These vessels," Reynolds continued, "are officially listed as decommissioned cargo haulers. In reality, they're fully equipped to support Arcanian life. We can evacuate up to 3 million of their civilians before the quarantine goes into full effect. The Council will be monitoring all FTL corridors," General Martinez pointed out. "Their sensor networks cover every approved flight path." Reynolds' smile widened. "That's why we're not using them." Dr. Mitchell's team decoded enough of the Arcanian archaeological data to confirm our suspicions. The Council's predecessors fell to primitive tactics they never saw coming. History's about to repeat itself. He brought up a new display showing hundreds of small, cold-running ships. These vessels use magnetic sails and solar wind propulsion. Slow by modern standards, but virtually invisible to Council tech. They're looking for quantum signatures and energy weapons. They won't find any. The Joint Chiefs exchanged glances. They all understood the stakes. Earth couldn't officially oppose the Council. Not yet. But they could fight back in ways the Council would never expect. "What about the Arcanian ruins?" Admiral Cooper asked. "If what they found there is important enough for the Council to risk this kind of operation." "Dr. Brooks is coordinating with our surviving Arcanian contacts," Reynolds replied. "The ruins contain proof that the Council's been suppressing technological development across the galaxy. They force every species to develop along the same tech tree, making them dependent on Council gifts of technology." He brought up one final image, Earth's orbital defense grid. To Council scans, it appeared to be standard technology. In reality, each satellite contained systems based on Earth's unique development path, technology the Council had never seen and couldn't predict. "The Council thinks they're containing a threat," Reynolds concluded. "Instead, they're about to learn why humanity's history of resistance movements makes us so dangerous. We don't need fancy quantum tech to fight back. We've been masters of underground operations since before we had electricity." General Martinez stood, her cybernetic eye glowing with fierce determination. "Send the coded signal to all commands. Operation Eternal Debt begins now. And get me a secure line to the Chinese and Russian space forces. They'll want to deploy their obsolete stealth ships as well." As the Joint Chiefs filed out, Reynolds looked one last time at the image of the Arcanian homeworld under blockade. 30 years ago, they'd broken the rules to save humanity. Now, humanity would break every rule in the book to save them. The Council was about to learn a harsh lesson. Earth never forgets its debts, and humans protect their friends, no matter the cost. Special Agent Marcus Taylor watched the rain cascade down New Singapore's neon-lit towers, each droplet carrying traces of quantum scanning particles. The Council wasn't taking any chances. Their peacekeepers circled the spaceport like vultures, searching for any sign of Arcanian energy signatures. "Shipping container Echo 7 is ready," whispered Lisa Chen through his neural link. From her position in the spaceport's control tower, she had eyes on everything. Council guards are rotating in 40 seconds. Marcus checked his antique wristwatch. No quantum emissions, no digital signals. "What's the word from our passengers?" 23 Arcanians in cryo-sleep, disguised as mineral samples from the Europa mines. Lisa's voice carried a hint of pride. "The crystalline resemblance is perfect. Dr. Brooks' team really outdid themselves with the masking technology." The massive cargo ship loomed above them, its hull deliberately rusted and patched. To any observer, it was just another pre-FTL freighter, too old and slow for modern commerce. Perfect for their needs. Marcus moved through the shadows of the loading dock, his chameleonic coat bending light around him. Technology reversed engineered from old Earth octopus studies, not the Council's quantum stealth. Simple, effective, invisible to their scans. Council shuttle incoming. Lisa's warning came sharp and urgent. New scanning protocol. Marcus froze. The Council peacekeepers had been changing their detection methods daily, trying to catch the growing number of disappearing Arcanians. This would be the true test of their countermeasures. The shuttle descended, its quantum sensors sweeping the area. Inside Echo 7, 23 Arcanian refugees lay hidden within specially treated containers. The walls were lined with a metamaterial developed from Earth's early stealth aircraft research, decades old, but unknown to Council science. "They're using bioelectric detection," Lisa reported, "looking for Arcanian neural patterns." Marcus smiled. "Let them look." The containers were lined with recordings of Earth crystal formations from the Siberian mines. Same basic pattern as Arcanian neurology, but completely natural. Another gift from humanity's primitive research. The Council shuttle hovered directly overhead. Marcus held his breath, though he knew the scanning had nothing to do with human life signs. They were looking for their own version of advanced technology, never considering that their quarry might be hidden by methods centuries older. Clear. Lisa's relief was palpable. "Guards are moving to Sector 7. We have 4 minutes." Marcus sprinted into action, his movements practiced and precise. The loading mechs, painted to look worn and outdated, lifted Echo 7 with deliberate slowness. Just another container of mining samples bound for the outer colonies. Dr. Mitchell sent an update. Lisa continued. "She's decoded more of the ruins data. Marcus, the Arcanians found evidence of at least 3 other species that were quarantined into extinction. The Council's been doing this for centuries." The container locked into place in the ship's hold. Marcus checked the cryo readings one last time through an old-style fiber optic cable. All 23 refugees stable. "They won't succeed this time," he promised. "How many have we saved so far?" "This group makes 812. The Australian underground has another 300 ready for evacuation next week. Russian ice mines are hiding nearly 1,000. Marcus made his way back through the rain, watching the cargo ship begin its pre-launch sequence. It would take 6 weeks to reach the outer colonies at sub-FTL speeds. 6 weeks of traveling along old trade routes, broadcasting outdated transponder codes, looking like just another relic of humanity's early space age. "Update from Admiral Cooper," Lisa added. "The Council's still focused on our modern fleet movements. They've got quantum detectors watching every FTL corridor. No sign they've noticed our slow boat evacuations. Their arrogance is our best weapon," Marcus replied, reaching the safety of his hidden command post. "They're so convinced of their technological superiority, they can't imagine we'd use something as primitive as chemical rockets and solar sails." He watched the cargo ship lift off, raindrops sizzling against its hull. 23 more saved. A small victory, but they were adding up. Humanity had learned long ago that resistance wasn't always about winning big battles. Sometimes it was about 1,000 small successes, each one built on ingenuity, determination, and the simple refusal to abandon those who needed help. Next group arrives in 3 days, Lisa reminded him, masquerading as crystalline art sculptures. Marcus nodded, already planning the next rescue. The Council thinks they've trapped the Arcanians. Instead, they've just discovered why you should never underestimate humanity's capacity for finding ways around the rules. Lieutenant Emma Davidson's hands moved across the maintenance panel with practiced efficiency, her fake service badge identifying her as a member of the Council's custodial staff. The archive station's massive data cores hummed around her, their quantum processors handling information from across the galaxy. None of the Council species paid attention to the human worker, exactly as planned. Security sweep in 3 minutes. Marcus Taylor's voice whispered through her neural implant, masked as a simple hearing aid. How's our little friend doing? Emma glanced at the mechanical cockroach scuttling from her toolkit. The tiny robot, based on Earth's most resilient insect, carried a payload of microscopic data collectors. Roberto's doing great, she replied, using the creature's nickname. Council security never considered protecting against physical infiltration. They're too focused on cyber attacks. The roach disappeared into a ventilation shaft, its carbon fiber legs carrying it toward the secure data nodes. Sometimes, the oldest tricks worked best. The Council's advanced sensors weren't designed to detect something as simple as a mechanical insect. Getting telemetry now, Marcus confirmed. Dr. Mitchell's decryption keys from the Arcanian ruins are working. We're in their historical database. Emma continued her maintenance routine, moving methodically through the archive level. Around her, various alien species accessed data terminals, none suspecting that humanity had found a way into their most secure files. Her augmented reality contact lenses displayed Roberto's progress through the facility's infrastructure. Emma. Marcus's voice itched. You need to see this. Patching through to your lenses. The data scrolled across her vision, and Emma fought to keep her expression neutral. Records of systematic suppression spanning centuries. Controlled famines, engineered conflicts, entire civilizations guided along predetermined technological paths, kept dependent on Council generosity. They're making sure nobody develops technology differently than they did, she subvocalized. Any species that finds an alternate path gets quarantined, Marcus finished. The Arcanians aren't the first. Looking at records of at least 15 species who were isolated after discovering something the Council wanted hidden. 3 went extinct during their protective quarantine. Emma moved to another maintenance panel, her mind racing. The ruins. The Arcanians found evidence of this, didn't they? More than that. They found proof that the Council's own technology was stolen. All their quantum tech, their FTL drives, they didn't develop it. They found it in ruins, just like the Arcanians did. Then they suppressed anyone else from making the same discovery. An alert flashed in Emma's vision. Security sweep incoming. She focused on replacing a burnt-out quantum filament, looking every bit the diligent worker. The Council guards passed without a second glance. Getting more data, Marcus reported. Star charts. Emma, their ships are moving into position near Earth's colonies. Standard pattern before a quarantine action. They're going to try to isolate us too. Emma felt a cold certainty. They must have realized we helped the Arcanians. Wait. Marcus's voice turned thoughtful. These ship movements, they're exactly like their previous operations. Down to the patrol patterns, they haven't changed their tactics in centuries. Emma smiled slightly as she closed the maintenance panel. Because they've never needed to. No one's ever successfully resisted them. And they've never faced an enemy who used technology they didn't understand, Marcus added. Their entire defense network is built around detecting advanced energy signatures. They don't even scan for radio waves anymore. Roberto emerged from another vent. Mission accomplished. Emma scooped the mechanical insect into her toolkit. How much time do we have before their fleet's in position? 3 days at most. But Emma, there's something else. These files show their quantum defense grid has a fatal flaw. They never fixed it because no one's ever attacked them with primitive weapons. Transmit everything to Admiral Cooper, Emma ordered, heading for the exit. The Council thinks they're setting a trap for us. Instead, they're walking right into ours. Marcus finished. Sending the data now. Emma, what we found here. This changes everything. No, Emma corrected, stepping into the transport tube that would take her to her extraction point. This just confirms what we suspected. The Council isn't superior. They're just better at hiding their crimes. She patched through to Earth Command on her neural link. Tell the Admiral. Operation Eternal Debt is about to enter Phase 2. The Council's about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our experience at fighting tyranny. Director Tom Harrison stood in Earth's Electronic Warfare Command, watching lines of ancient computer code scroll across screens that deliberately used LED technology instead of quantum displays. Around him, his team worked at stations running operating systems that predated humanity's first Mars landing. COBOL deployment complete, announced Lieutenant Sarah Reynolds, her fingers dancing across a mechanical keyboard. The Council's quantum AI can't even recognize it as programming language. To them, it's just noise in the system. Tom allowed himself a small smile. How long until their defense grid realizes it's been compromised? That's the beautiful part, sir. Sarah brought up a diagram showing the Council's network architecture. Their systems are so advanced, they've lost the ability to process simple binary code. Our virus is literally too primitive for them to detect. Across the room, dozens of technicians monitored their attack's progress using technology that museums had donated to the war effort. The Council's quantum processors, designed to defend against sophisticated cyber warfare, were helpless against programming languages created before the Internet existed. Signal from Admiral Cooper's fleet called out Commander Mike Peterson. Council ships are moving into attack position near Europa Colony. Their quantum targeting systems are starting to glitch. Tom nodded, watching the tactical display. The Council vessels, each one a masterpiece of advanced technology, were about to learn a harsh lesson about complexity versus simplicity. Launch the next phase, he ordered. Sarah initiated the sequence. Deploying MS-DOS attack packets. Remember when we thought these systems were obsolete? She grinned. The Council's quantum firewalls can't even see them coming. Across the solar system, Council ships began experiencing cascading system failures. Their quantum computers, trying to process simple command lines, fell into recursive loops. Navigation systems, searching for threats in quantum space, missed the radio waves carrying viruses written in programming languages centuries old. Message from Dr. Mitchell. Mike's voice carried excitement. She's finished translating more of the Arcanian archaeological data. The Council's predecessors, they fell to exactly this kind of attack. They became so dependent on advanced technology that they lost the ability to defend against basic systems. Tom watched as more Council ships reported systems failures. Their entire defense network, built on stolen quantum technology they barely understood, was being dismantled by human ingenuity. Sir, Sarah called out, we're detecting Council reinforcements entering the system. But she paused, double-checking her readings. They're following the exact same patrol patterns as before. They haven't adapted their tactics at all. Of course not, Tom replied. They've never needed to adapt. Until now. He opened a channel to Earth Command. General Martinez, Phase 1 is complete. Their quantum defense grid is compromised. You can begin Phase 2. The tactical display shifted, showing hundreds of small ships emerging from hidden bases across the solar system. Each one was built using technology that predated humanity's contact with the Council. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, radio communications, The Council's quantum sensors, blind to such primitive methods, didn't register them as threats. Council communication intercept, Mike announced, patching it through. The alien voice crackled with confusion, unable to process system errors, unknown data type interfering with quantum processors. Request immediate. The transmission cut off as another wave of ancient computer viruses hit their communications network. Tom thought about the irony. The Council had spent centuries suppressing technological development, forcing everyone to follow their predetermined path. They never imagined someone would turn old technology into a weapon. "Sir," Sarah reported, "we're receiving signals from other species resistance groups. They're seeing the Council ships going blind. They want to know how we did it." Tom smiled. "Send them our old computer science textbooks. Let's show the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward is to look backward." He watched as more Council ships went dark, their quantum systems overwhelmed by programming languages created when computers had less processing power than a modern kitchen appliance. "Director," Mike called out, "Admiral Cooper is requesting permission to begin the liberation of Arcanian space. Council defenses are down. Their ships are blind. They're completely vulnerable to our primitive weapons." "Permission granted," Tom replied. "Let's show the Council why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to think differently than everyone else." Major Diana Wilson crouched behind a fallen crystal pillar on Proxima Station, surrounded by a dozen alien resistance fighters. Her students, as she thought of them, represented 7 different species, each one previously convinced they were alone in resisting Council control. "Remember," she whispered, her translator converting her words into their various languages, "they expect attacks from advanced weapons. They're looking for quantum signatures and energy readings." She pulled out an old-style crossbow, modified to fire electromagnetic pulse bolts. "They're not looking for these." The selenite beside her, a crystalline being like the Arcanians, shifted his faceted surface in what Diana had learned was amusement. "To think," he chimed, "we spent centuries trying to replicate Council technology, when Earth's museum pieces are more effective." "Council patrol incoming," reported Crix, a reptilian Centaurian, through their encrypted radio channel, another primitive technology the Council had long abandoned monitoring. 6 peacekeepers, standard formation. Diana nodded to her team. This was the true test of their training. After weeks of teaching Earth's guerrilla warfare tactics to species who had only known Council-approved military doctrine, they were ready for their first major operation. The Council patrol moved exactly as expected. They always did. Centuries of technological superiority had bred predictability. They followed their standard search pattern, quantum scanners sweeping for advanced energy weapons or stealth fields. They never looked up. "Now," Diana breathed. From the station's maintenance catwalks, resistance fighters dropped simple nets. Technology barely changed since Earth's Stone Age. The nets, woven with copper threads, created localized electromagnetic disruptions. The Council peacekeepers' advanced armor, dependent on quantum field generators, suddenly became deadweight. "Phase 2, Diana commanded. Her students moved with practiced precision. The selenite rolled specialized marbles across the floor, glass spheres containing scrambler signals based on 20th century radio interference. The Council's communication networks, designed to resist quantum hacking, were helpless against analog static. The Centaurian resistance fighters launched their attacks next, using modified slingshots to deliver localized EMP charges. Each primitive projectile caused cascading failures in the Council's over-engineered equipment. "Command center breach in 3 minutes," reported Lieutenant Jack Thompson through the radio. He led another team on the far side of the station. "The Council's still trying to trace our quantum signatures." Diana allowed herself a grim smile. "They're fighting the last war. They'd forgotten that progress isn't always linear." She turned to her team. "Remember your history lessons. Earth's greatest victories often came from using unexpected tactics, not superior technology." The resistance fighters moved through the station like ghosts, employing techniques perfected in Earth's centuries of warfare. The Council's sensors, searching for high-tech threats, missed the simple physical tripwires. Their quantum predictive algorithms failed to anticipate attacks based on prehistoric hunting techniques. Major, Jack's voice crackled through the radio. "We've secured the main control hub. You should see this. They've got deployment plans for the entire sector. They're not just quarantining the Arcanians. They're planning to isolate a dozen species that showed signs of independent technological development. Send everything to Earth Command," Diana ordered, leading her team toward the rendezvous point. "And prepare for Phase 3. As they moved, she saw the change in her alien comrades. Species that had once competed now worked in seamless coordination. Races that had feared each other now fought side by side. Humanity hadn't just taught them resistance tactics, they'd shown them a different way of thinking. "Alert from Earth Command," Jack reported. "The Council's bringing in reinforcements. 3 dreadnoughts just appeared at the sector's edge." "Good," Diana replied, checking her decidedly non-quantum weapons. More ships running the same vulnerable operating systems. More crews following the same predictable protocols. She gathered her team, these representatives of species that had lived under Council control for generations. In their eyes, she saw something the Council had tried to suppress for centuries. Hope. "The Council thinks technology always moves forward," she told them. "They've forgotten that sometimes you need to step backward to find a new path." She chambered another EMP bolt in her crossbow. "Now, let's show them why humanity's history of resistance makes us so dangerous. We don't just fight. We teach others how to fight too." Admiral James Cooper stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching Earth's obsolete fleet move into position. The ships around him would have looked more at home in a museum than a battlefield. Chemical rockets, ballistic weapons, and hulls of simple reinforced steel instead of quantum-enhanced alloys. Council fleet holding position at the edge of the Arcanian system. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Chen reported from her tactical station. "Their quantum sensors are still searching for our main force." "They won't find it," James replied, "because there isn't one. This is our whole fleet. Exactly what they see. They just can't believe we'd attack with such primitive ships." The tactical display showed hundreds of vessels converging from multiple vectors. The Council's defensive grid, still struggling with the ancient computer viruses uploaded during their last encounter, failed to recognize the approaching ships as threats. "Signal from Captain Michael Brooks," Rachel announced. "His team has breached the Council's primary communications hub in the sector. They're ready to broadcast." James nodded, thinking of the thousands of hours of evidence they'd gathered. Records of Council manipulation spanning centuries. Proof of their technological suppression. Documentation of species that had been quarantined into extinction. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Charlie," he ordered. The name was deliberate. They'd found that Council quantum intercepts couldn't process 20th century military terminology. "Remember, we're not here to destroy their fleet. We're here to open their eyes." The Earth fleet accelerated, using simple Newtonian physics that the Council's predictive algorithms couldn't seem to grasp. Their ships, so advanced they'd forgotten the basics of space combat, were about to learn some very old lessons. Multiple Council vessels powering up quantum weapons, Rachel reported. "They're still trying to target our energy signatures." "Launch the first wave," James commanded. Across the fleet, cargo bay doors opened. Thousands of objects emerged, simple metal spheres, each one containing a payload of ball bearings. The Council's quantum point defense systems, designed to stop energy weapons and smart missiles, didn't even register the clouds of primitive projectiles. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The results were devastating. Council ships, their quantum shields calibrated for energy weapons, were peppered with kinetic impacts. Nothing critical was damaged, but their sensor arrays, the complex quantum detection systems they relied on, shattered under the physical assault. "Now, Captain Brooks," James ordered through the comm. Show them the truth. Across the sector, every quantum communication channel was suddenly flooded with data. Not sophisticated quantum encryption, but simple radio waves carrying undeniable proof. The Council's lies, their manipulations, their suppression of technological advancement, all exposed. Council ships are going dark, Rachel reported. Their crews, they're receiving the transmissions. Sir, we're getting responses. Ships from at least 4 Council species are standing down. James watched as the mighty Council fleet, faced with centuries of hidden truth, began to fragment. Species that had been manipulated into serving as enforcers were turning against their masters. Message from the Arcanian Defense Fleet, Rachel said, surprise in her voice. They're thanking us. The Council's quarantine ships are retreating from their positions. Tell our allies to move in, James ordered. It's time for Phase 2. More ships appeared from behind Earth's fleet. Vessels from a dozen different species, all using modified versions of humanity's primitive technology. The Council's remaining loyalist ships, faced with weapons their quantum systems couldn't predict, began to withdraw. Sir, Rachel called out, real emotion in her voice, we're receiving transmissions from across Council space. Other species, they're rising up, using the same tactics we taught the Resistance. The Council's control is breaking system by system. James allowed himself a small smile. Send word to Earth Command. Tell them the Council's about to learn their final lesson. It's not about having the most advanced technology. It's about understanding the fundamental principles they've forgotten. He watched as more Council ships powered down their weapons, their crews choosing truth over blind loyalty. The revolution they'd planned for months was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. Your orders, Admiral, Rachel asked. Set course for the Council capital, James replied. It's time to help them remember something they forgot long ago. Real civilization isn't built on technological superiority. It's built on trust, truth, and the courage to face your own mistakes. Ambassador Rachel Martinez stood in the Council's Grand Chamber, now filled with representatives from 30 different species. The crystalline dome above, once a symbol of Council supremacy, now reflected the light of a new dawn. Behind her stood Dr. Amanda Brooks and Zilith, finally reunited after the liberation of the Arcanian system. For centuries, Rachel began, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. The Council claimed to guide younger species toward enlightenment. Today, we show the galaxy what that guidance truly meant. The holographic displays activated, but not with their usual quantum precision. Instead, simple two-dimensional images appeared, projected using technology that predated Earth's first spaceflight. The Council members shifted uncomfortably as their secrets were laid bare. Humanity didn't come here for revenge, Rachel continued. We came because you threatened our friends. But what we found, she gestured, and the displays showed planet after planet, species after species, all manipulated into following the Council's prescribed path of development. First Speaker Nexus rose, his tentacles rippling with agitation. You cannot understand the burden of guiding civilization. We maintained order. No. Dr. Brooks stepped forward, Zilith at her side. You maintained control. The Arcanian ruins proved it. You didn't develop your quantum technology. You found it, just like the Arcanians did. Then you suppressed anyone else who might discover the truth. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as Zilith projected the original data from the ruins. Evidence that the Council's quantum science wasn't their creation, but salvaged from an ancient civilization, one that had fallen precisely because they'd become too dependent on advanced technology. But we didn't come here to destroy the Council, Rachel announced, silencing the chamber. We came to transform it. Colonel Jack Reynolds entered, leading a procession of resistance leaders from across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies under Council rule now stood together, their unity forged in the struggle for freedom. Look around you, Rachel gestured to the gathered allies. While you were forcing everyone to develop the same way, you missed something incredible. The Selenites developed crystalline computing we never imagined. The Centaurians perfected biological engineering through their own methods. And humanity, we kept every step of our development, from stone tools to quantum science. She activated another display, showing the flourishing trade and cooperation between formerly suppressed species. In 3 months of freedom, we've seen more genuine progress than in centuries of council control. Because real advancement doesn't come from following a predetermined path. It comes from diversity, from trying new approaches, from learning from each other. The council members looked at each other, seeing their carefully maintained order crumbling, and something better taking its place. Major Diana Wilson stepped forward with representatives from her resistance cells, living proof that different species could work together as equals. We offer you a choice, Rachel continued. Not surrender, but partnership. A new council, one that celebrates our differences instead of suppressing them. One that shares knowledge instead of controlling it. Dr. Brooks displayed the final piece of evidence, records showing how many times the council's rigid thinking had nearly led to disaster, saved only by the innovative solutions of lesser species. The Arcanians were right, Rachel concluded. The ruins didn't just expose your lies. They showed us a better way forward. Not by forcing everyone to follow the same path, but by learning from each other's journeys. First speaker Nexus looked around the chamber, seeing the determination in every face. The council's military was in ruins, their secrets exposed, their power broken. But instead of destruction, they were being offered hope. Perhaps, he finally said, his translator struggling with unfamiliar harmonics of humility, it is time for us to learn from those we thought needed our guidance. Rachel smiled, feeling the weight of months of struggle lifting. That's all we ever wanted. Not to rule, not to punish, but to show you what you've forgotten. That true civilization isn't built on technological superiority or controlled development. It's built on trust, cooperation, and the simple truth that every species has something to teach and something to learn. As the chamber erupted in approval, Dr. Brooks turned to Zilith. Was it worth it, my friend? The Arcanian's crystalline surface shimmered with joy. More than worth it. You didn't just save my people. You freed the galaxy. And you did it not with superior weapons or advanced technology, but with humanity's greatest strength, the ability to unite others and show them a better way. Outside the chamber, the first ships of the new council were already gathering. A fleet as diverse as the species it represented, each bringing their own unique contributions to a galaxy finally free to forge its own path.